How are you today, Clay?
Well, brother, I'm excited. We've got a lot of background ambient noise here. We've got some great energy. General Flynn is going to be here for the town hall tonight, and all the major media is covering it. And so I'm on the phone with you. We got General Flynn. There's so many great patriots out there. Sir, there is this thing called a retraction being done by the Washington Post. Tell us about the Great Retraction.
I'd like to refer to it as the admission of wrongdoing. For the listeners that aren't familiar with it, just generally the background is that there was a furor raised when President Trump did an interview with Brad Raffensperger's office and an investigator, where there were claims that President Trump had made statements that were reported by the Washington Post from an anonymous source in the Secretary of State's office. And they claimed that he had said he wanted the investigator to, quote unquote, find the fraud, and that if she did so, she would be a quote unquote national hero. Those quotes were lies. They told the Washington Post, or the story to the public was that there was no tape of the conversation with the investigator and the president. Well, they found the tape. They found the tape, and the tape revealed that the president did not say that at all. The president said that he wanted it reviewed because they might find some dishonesty and that her job would be important. So they grossly misrepresented what the president said in a way to try to suggest that he was obstructing justice. Now, the Fulton County District Attorney's Office has got an investigation going to impanel a grand jury based primarily on the false statements that were published in the Washington Post. One lie begets another lie, all designed to advance an agenda against the President of the United States. They got caught. So it's a big deal, and it's a bigger deal than the Washington Post because untold numbers of members of the mainstream media reported the same lies.
Right.
You see, the media doesn't check anymore to find out if the stories are true.
Yep.
The media doesn't follow basic journalistic standards on confidential or anonymous sources. They get somebody that says what they want them to say. They call them a confidential source so the person's not outed where they could be tested and their statements verified.
Right.
And they run to the press. Boy, that's not the way they used to do it, and that's not the way journalists are supposed to operate under their own canons of ethics and standards.
Lynn, I've never been an attorney for multiple reasons. One, I know I could not pass the exams needed to become an attorney. But you have unbelievable memory, and you've actually gone after CNN 3 times, I believe, and you've won. You're one of the most legendary attorneys, well-known attorneys in America. Why can't you, in a court of law, cite why can't you say unknown, or I guess unspecified sources? Why can't you in the court of law get up there and present evidence and say that you have a source that you're not going to name and then use that as evidence? Why can you not do that in a court of law, and then why can they do it in the court of public opinion? Why can the media do that, but you can't do that in the court of law?
Well, the media has legal accountability for false statements.
Okay.
So here I am, Joe Citizen, and they publish a false statement about me.
Yeah.
And they attribute it to an anonymous source. How am I going to go find out who that anonymous source is to test the credibility, to test the accuracy, to see whether that's not somebody just out there with an agenda, a bias against me? Well, if they claim confidentiality, they say, well, they only agreed to speak on condition of anonymity. They give themselves complete immunity from wrongdoing, and that is not the law. I can remind the listeners, and maybe I'm dating myself, but there was a minor incident, that's said facetiously, called Watergate.
Yeah.
Watergate was busted open historically by 2 reporters at the Washington Post, Woodward and Bernstein. They also had an editor there that knew journalism standards named Ben Bradley. Bradley drove old Woodward and Bernstein half crazy because they had a source they called Deep Throat. And they wanted to publish what Deep Throat said. And Bradley said, I'm not going to allow you to do it under the standards unless you can come up with 2 independent corroborating sources that tells me that Deep Throat, the anonymous source, has a measure of credibility before we'll publish it. Now, they were able to meet those standards. But when you turn somebody loose in the media, in today's environment, on television or in print or online, and you're simply going with one source who is anonymous, everybody's at risk. They're at risk that one source is anonymous because they're biased and they're advancing a false agenda. There's no accountability for that person, and then no accountability for the publisher that publishes their statements. That's a lack of rule of law. That's the violation of fundamental fairness. It violates decades of journalistic standards. So you can run with your anonymous source. The fact is, the anonymous source is supposed to be the exception,
right?
Not the rule. It's become the rule in recent years in the media. The reason that it's the exception is that the duty of the journalist is to undertake every effort to get the source to go on the record. And it's only an absolute last ditch where you'll give them an agreement of anonymity. But even then, you've got to look around and find other corroborating evidence that supports the believability of the anonymous source. Otherwise, it's just defamation by accusation from an unknown source. And that's a slippery slope that we've gone down in this country in recent years in our journalist and media world because they've turned into propagandists. And that's their classic working tool now. We'll say whatever we want to, and we'll say, well, it's an anonymous source.
Anonymous source.
Someone close to the president,
right.
or it's someone knowledgeable about the investigation.
Oh.
Who are these people? Call them out. Put their names out there so we can check out to see what's really going on and whether we're getting the truth or a lie. So this is a big deal, and it highlights a lot of problems in our media, our propaganda media right now, and the political agendas of people trying to overthrow our government.
Now Lynn,
it's one of many problems, but it's a major problem that's highlighted by what happened to President Trump in this Washington Post story. And guess what, Clay? Yesterday I gave what I'll call an educated guess based on information that I've developed over the last several months. I said, I bet you that we got to go find out who the anonymous source was that lied.
Right.
And then he or she in all caps needs to be fired. There's got to be accountability. I suspected then that it was Jordan Fuchs, the deputy director, the deputy secretary of state. The Washington Post came out today and outed the source. It was Jordan Fuchs.
Jordan Fuchs.
The deputy secretary of state, who has a job that didn't exist under Georgia law until I call him Brad Jordy Raffensperger, created the position of deputy secretary of state and gave it to Jordy Fuchs, who's involved with Dominion voting machines, who calls the shots at the Secretary of State's office, even though she's not qualified, experienced, or competent to do so, because Brad Raffensperger doesn't do his job. He's got a lot of family money. He does not actually perform his job as the Secretary of State.
Lynn, I
he
want to
outsourced to Jordy Fuchs and a guy named Gabe Sterling. He's got ties to Dominion too.
I want to bring this up here, Lynn. You mentioned Dominion voting machines. Now, Dominion shared office space with George Soros up there in Toronto. Dominion, the election machines shared office space with George Soros. That's a fact. We know that the software used, the Smartmatic Sequoia election software, that was created by communists in Venezuela. These are all facts. But yet somehow, Lynn, you're being silenced because you're sharing the truth. Meanwhile, the mainstream media can quote uncited sources. And I think what's happening is a lot of patriots feel like they can no longer sit on the sidelines. People feel like they need to get involved. They want to stand up. They want to fight. They want to get involved. And if it's okay, sir, what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring in some people who are here for the General Flynn town hall tonight, and I'm sure many of which are going to come see you in Tulsa, Oklahoma on April 16th and 17th. And they had a few questions for you. Sir, is that okay if we begin our Linwood interrogation?
It's absolutely fine. I love to be asked questions, even if it's in the form of interrogation. Let me make one point, though.
Yes, sir.
Look at what's happening. My free speech is being censored and suppressed.
Right.
with a national campaign to smear me and a campaign with Mercer University, the State Bar of Georgia, the Lawyers Club of Atlanta, to punish me for exercising my First Amendment right of speech and for exercising my right to petition for grievances, to file lawsuits. Lawsuits, by the way, that were validated by Clarence Thomas's dissenting opinion. So they're trying to keep me from speaking truth, and they're letting people under the guise of anonymity go out and speak lies.
Correct.
That's just plain and simple propaganda 101 that's part of a color revolution where people are trying to overthrow our government and to do away with our rule of law. So when you say people are upset, they are. They should be. I believe in the rule of law. So to draw an analogy, not to get someone to claim I'm trying to stir up violence, because that's not what I am and that's not what I do. I'm a lawyer, and I have to go in and fire my bullets in a court of law. So I'm going to be suing the State Bar. I'm going to litigate these people through the rule of law until we learn once again that perhaps, sadly, it doesn't exist. But I'm going to fire my legal bullets, because if we don't try to fire those bullets legally, God forbid somebody's going to start firing them in the streets. We can't let that happen in our country. So I'm going to fight in a court of law, and I'm going to fire my bullets there, and I've got some pretty good bullets to fire. Just like now, we've got bullets in the court of public opinion to fire once we have learned that there was a campaign to lie about the president to ultimately get him criminally prosecuted, and it's all a fraud. This one masterminded by Jordy Fuchs and I think a few other people in the state of Georgia.
A treatment that's been safely available to treat malaria for over 3 decades now. But now we're gonna shift directions. We're gonna go into the town hall mode. And these are great people. And Lynn, many of these people are going to come meet you here at the event on April 16th and 17th. This young lady used to work in a prison, Lynn, so watch out. Watch out. Ma'am, will you introduce yourself to Lynn Wood?
Hey, Lynn, this is Christy. Yeah, I used to work at a prison in Cushing, Oklahoma, small town girl. I just want to say thank you for being a patriot to us and sticking up for the American people. I'm honored to be able to ask you this question, and I just want to know, are you excited to come to Tulsa and speak to the American people here?
Christy, the answer to that is unequivocally yes, I am excited. Listen, don't demean the small town. Small town America is what makes America great.
Absolutely.
It's the big cities in America that's creating the problems in this country right now.
Oh, absolutely.
But America, the heartbeat of America, the heart and soul of America is rural America. It's the small cities. It's the small businesses. It's the family units. It's our communities. So I'm thrilled to come to Tulsa.
Well, we're very thrilled to have you.
If I get a chance to meet you.
Now, do you when you now work in the office up here? How is it different working up here than working in prison? I mean, is there less fights? Is there more fights? Do you feel more dangerous, less dangerous?
It's actually Thrive actually changed my whole life. I love it here. The vibe here is amazing. It gave me a lot of opportunities to make my life better and do better for myself and get to meet amazing people like you, Lynn, and a bunch of other people that are going to be at the conference. So I'm actually thrilled to be here, and it is a lot different than a prison. So
Lynn, it's a lot different than a prison up here. That's the best endorsement I've received all year on the show. All right, now Lynn, we have another.
Listen. She worked in prison. I was born in North Carolina. My grandfather called me a North Carolina Tar Heel, and then I moved with my family at age 3 to Georgia, and he called me a Georgia Cracker. Now I'm in South Carolina. I'm not sure what I am. I'm just a Southerner, but you could call me a redneck. You can call me a deplorable. I'm just an average citizen. I've had some success financially in my life thanks to my hard work and the opportunities America gave me.
Yep.
But I identify with the rednecks. I'm not part of the global elite. I don't want to be. I'm luckily I've taken the opportunities in America to advance myself. That's what's great about America. It allows you to upwardly advance yourself based on your hard work and the exercise of the freedoms that this country recognizes, the freedoms that were given to us by God Almighty. So I'm looking forward to meeting my fellow American citizens in Tulsa, knowing that we are all the heart and soul of this nation. And the heart and soul of this nation is not going to allow it to be taken over by the communist, the global elitist, or the CIA and the deep state that exists in this country. We're going to get rid of them.
Oh, absolutely. And I stand with you, Lynn, all the way. So.
Amen. Well, then we have our next guest here. This guy, he looks like he's not part of Antifa. I know it's an audio-only broadcast today. He appears not to be part of Antifa. I'm going to get him on this mic right here. Parker, I'm going to put him on that mic right here. So, sir, come on down to this mic here. He's got a red tie on, what appears to be a blue sport coat. He's got some great khakis on, Lynn. I don't know he's not a member of Antifa. We're not prepared for the question he's going to ask, but sir, why don't you introduce yourself to Lynn Wood, and then what question do you have for him?
Hey, Lynn, this is Micah Paul. I am not, and never was a part of Antifa. I'm just a roofer, which oftentimes I get a bad rap, but not that bad of a rap. I guess my question for you, Lynn, is, the big picture that I keep hearing Clay talk about is this fight for truth that is, it seems like sometimes we're losing, but I don't want to be discouraging or negative. How are we continuing to fight so that the truth can be revealed, so that we don't have to continue worrying about some of these issues that you've been talking about so far?
Well, let me say this. Our time on earth is limited. By our faith, our time is unlimited. We have eternal life through the grace of God Almighty and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. But I'll tell you, when your time on earth is over and you are part of living in the history that we're living in right now, do you want to be remembered as someone who fought to the end for truth, or somebody who gave up and surrendered to the lie? I think we all, who are patriots, want to be able to put on our tombstone that we fought to the death for truth. We never surrendered to the lie. So what can we do? I've said this, and I think General Flynn is probably the best spokesperson to describe it. The way I see it is we've got to rebuild our country from the ground up right now to get back to what we were when we were founded, a nation under God, a nation of communities that combined together through states to be the United States of America. So you've got to go out and you've got to start being active at the local level, your boards of education, your city councilmen, your mayors. Then you got to expand that into your communities where you're talking about your state officials, your state board members, your state legislators, and yes, your governors, your lieutenant governors. You got to find people who love America that are willing to go and serve their fellow citizens. Citizens, statesmen, that's what we need. I think our founding fathers did not ever envision that we would be governed by officials who were there to be career politicians, to fatten their pocketbooks and build their own personal power. They envisioned that people would go and serve their country for a limited, finite period of time, try to do good laws for the fellow citizens, and then return and live under those laws that they enacted. So we've got to go back, and that's what our goal and our model has to be. We got to rebuild it from the ground up, and it can be done. I know already in South Carolina, I'm talking to people that want to do and are doing just that. Got to do it in your political party, too. I don't know if I disagree or agree with George Washington. I think I agree with him that political parties, two political parties, were going to be the death knell of the country, because you end up got one side getting what they want and one side fighting for what they want, and they forget the people in the middle. I'd like to see President Trump's model followed. We don't need necessarily now to form a third party. We need to rebuild from the ground up the Republican Party, to make it the party of patriots, the people who believe in what Donald Trump believes in, freedom and patriotism. And what I think will eventually happen is you're going to find that we're almost a one-party country, a party made up under the name of the Republican Party, a party of patriots, a party who loves freedom, a party who loves the fundamental principles this country was founded on. I've always said, bring in the immigrants. If they want to come here and they want to be part of an American experience, love our Constitution, work hard, play by the rules, we were made up as a country of immigrants. What we have now is a country where they're flooding us with people that don't care about our Constitution. They want to change it. They don't want to play by the rules. They want to come in illegally. We've got to get back to the fundamentals. Isn't that true in life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fundamentally in life, we got to get back to the fundamental rule of life, and that is that we're created by God Almighty, and He gave us a set of rules to live by. Our Constitution is supposed to have been based, according to the people that wrote it, on God's law. We got to simplify our lives. We got to simplify our laws. and we got to pursue simple truths. Simple truths are simple truth. We got to start being good to each other. We got to be civil to each other. We got to recognize that we're all different, but we're all alike. And we got to focus on the similarities, because right now they're trying to get us to focus on the differences, and that will divide us. So we need to focus on the basic things that we all share in common. We ought to be good to each other and be civil to each other and respect the right to disagree. So we got to get back to fundamentals in politics and government and in our own personal lives.
Lynn, we have another person here who's here for the town hall event. This person, I don't know if she is a member of Antifa or not. There's no real proof. We don't have, Lynn, we don't have proof that she's a member of Antifa, but I'm trying to practice to be a member of the Washington Post here.
Listen, be careful now. Some anonymous source will come out and say that she is.
Yes, I'm saying I have an anonymous source very close to the source. It could be in this room. It could not be. We don't know. But I'm trying to get a job, Lynn, at the Washington Post. So I'm trying to practice. So here we go. Folks, we're here on the Thrive Time Show. We have an anonymous source, close to the source, near the source. We can't name them right now to keep them safe, who thinks that our next guest might be a member of Antifa. Don't research it. Don't look it up. Just assume it's true. And then we'll print it. Okay. Well, then I'll keep practicing. Okay, ma'am, what is your name, and what question do you have for Lynn Wood?
Yeah, so my name is Parker, and my question would be, I know you've had lots of years of experience and a lot of followers of people. What's one piece of information you would want them to walk away knowing after talking to you?
One piece of information based on my life's experience. That's a good question. Let me take 2 seconds or 3 seconds and think about it, because I don't want to get this one wrong. I want to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. If I had to give someone, starting with my children, my friends, and my neighbors, one piece of advice, I would tell them to start at the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. Figure out what is the purpose of life. Why are we here? Mm-hmm. Ask yourself the question, is God real? Mm-hmm. Because once you ask yourself the question, you're going to learn that there's only one answer, that God is real. And then I would say follow God's laws. The most fundamental law that we were taught by Jesus, who was both man and God, is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. If we lived our lives like that, if we conducted our business like that, if we conducted our government like that, think about what a wonderful world this would be. Mm-hmm. So that would be my fundamental piece of advice to people on how to deal with their lives.
Incredible. That was
Ma'am,
amazing.
Can you prove that you're not a member of Antifa?
I am not a member of Antifa.
Lynn, she sounds like a member of Antifa.
Now, Clay, let me tell you, I'm
sure.
a lawyer. I know your identity. I know her identity. If I want to investigate whether she's a member of Antifa, I can do that. Mm. See, if we both were anonymous, I wouldn't know what to investigate to find out the truth, would I?
There it is.
I don't think we're talking to anybody that's a member of Antifa.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Hang around with you, I know she's not.
Okay, I'm just practicing, Lynn. If this whole podcast thing doesn't work out, I want to get a job at CNN or Washington Post, and I've got to learn to say the things. You say a shocking headline, you don't verify the sources, and you just print that thing. You just print it. We don't have time to be accurate. Hey, thank you, Parker, for being here. And, Lynn, we have another guest who has a question for you, but before he asks you the question, I want to bring up, we're approaching essentially your 1 year anniversary, Lynn. It was 5 days ago. So 1 year ago and 5 days. So 5 days and 1 year ago, you were meeting with the President of the United States. And you
saw... Actually, I met with him on March the 11th.
March the 11th.
Anniversary is fast.
Okay, yes.
I met with him at his request. I met with him in the Oval Office, and it was March 11th, the day that the worldwide pandemic was declared. So I had the, let's just say I'll call it like it is. I had the misfortune of having to look across the room outside of the Situation Room where I was waiting to go see the president, and I saw old Fauci. I call him Faustian for old Fauci. And I want to tell you, God gave you instincts. He gave you common sense. Boy, I tell you, I took one look at that guy, and I didn't like what I saw. My instinct said this is not a good person. Instincts turned out to be right.
Hey, just because Fauci told us that we shouldn't shut down the borders, and then we should shut down the borders, and we shouldn't wear a mask, and then we should wear a mask, and just because he is the one who used U.S. dollars to fund the controversial Wuhan lab where the COVID-19 virus came from, folks, if you don't believe me, type it into Google right now. Type in Fauci-funded controversial Wuhan lab, and you can find it right now on Newsweek. So just because Lynn, just because he's the one who funded the actual laboratory where the COVID-19 virus came from, and just because he flip-flops, and just because he without being elected, has ruined the lives of so many. Lynn, is there any other reasons why we shouldn't trust Dr. Fauci? I mean, because you picked up on it. I mean, you have a great sense of,
Well, let me tie it back to where I started.
Yeah.
What if Fauci was going around espousing Fauci's agenda under the condition of anonymity? And everything Fauci was saying, person close to the investigation, person close to the vaccination development, a person close to the National World Health Organization. What if we didn't know who he was? You wouldn't know whether to believe what you were reading or not. But the good news is we know about old Fauci. And we can investigate Fauci. And we can find out whether we want to believe old Fauci. And you don't have to do a whole lot of investigation on the internet, not in Google. Don't do that. Do DuckDuckGo. You can go in and you can investigate. DuckDuckSend. I'm sorry, I'm not that skilled in the names, but you can go in and you can investigate. Find out his ties to Bill Gates. Find out his ties to the National World Health Organization, the WHO. Find out that he said one thing on one day and another thing on another day. Find out whether he's really got any medical training and experience as a medical doctor. I believe if anybody takes a 30-minute or less search about Fauci in a legitimate search engine, you wouldn't trust Fauci any further than he can throw a baseball, and he can't throw one very far, and he can't even throw it in the right direction.
You are correct.
So do your homework. Think for yourself. Do your research. Find out who you really want to believe and trust and who you do not want to believe and trust. I wouldn't trust Fauci. I wouldn't believe him. He's inconsistent. He's contradictory. He's biased. He's got financial agendas at work. And he's calling the shots now under the so-called Biden administration. You got to wake up, America. Fauci's not your friend.
You know, Lynn, I will point this out. If all the listeners will go to Time to Free America, and you click on the truth about Dr. Fauci, you can see that he's the one who funded the controversial Wuhan lab with millions of U.S. dollars. You can see Dr. David Martin created this document called the Fauci Dossier, which is incredible. You can see his years of conflict of interest. You can see where he has served on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for years. You can see that this guy is not on our team. Now, Lynn, we have another great guest here for the town hall tonight. This guy, I can tell you, he's definitely not a member of Antifa. He seems to be a great American. Sir, what's your name, and what question would you have for Lynn Wood?
My name is Kenwan Folsom. That's kind of hard.
Kenwan Folsom.
Kenwan, yes.
Okay, and what question do you have for Lynn?
Hello, Genwan. Hello, Genwan.
Kenwan, with the K.
Genwan, I got it.
Yes. Thank you, Lynn. I got one question. Who is running the country? Is it President Trump? Is it President Biden? Or is it the military?
Boy, A, B, C, D. I guess we could say none of the above, but I don't want to do that one. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that. I think that's the issue that's burning in Americans' minds right now. We're not sure. Now, I can give you what I believe, looking at the situation as I perceive it and learn it through trying to research. I can look at the laws. I can look at some of the executive orders that have been passed. And I can give you what I would say is at least my own educated analysis. I guess that's my opinion. I do not believe that the Biden, quote-unquote, administration is real. I think it's fake. I believe that President Trump did not walk away from his commitment to America, freedom, and patriotism, and the people that supported him, tens of millions, maybe 89. Focus on the people that share your values. Work with them and build relationships. That'll build a strong bond fundamentally in our country that will ultimately be a strong bond of the United States. That's what we got to go back and do.
I love that.
Ma'am, any follow-up question that you want to ask Lynn? Again, Lynn, he's a crazy man. He actually cites his sources. He refuses to just spout generalities. Any
Sources?
Citing sources, Lynn. You could never be a reporter for CNN. You could never be on the Washington Post with that level of detail. They don't want that stuff. Any final question you have for Lynn Wood, ma'am?
I guess, actually, yes. I love that idea of local. I grew up in a very small town in Kentucky, so
Yeah.
we farmers. We ate food from our own dirt, which I
Amen.
think has been a big problem recently. We're eating too many things from too many other places. And
I agree.
But what I guess then my follow-up would be, what should we do once we've established kind of that local and taking care of, what could we do perhaps, I guess, on a state level to truly affect with elections or that kind of stuff, or to be more involved so that we actually know what's happening? Where would be a first step?
Exercise your right of free speech.
Free speech.
Now, social media has kind of become a plague on our society. A place where people profane, they insult you, they demean you, they lie about you.
It's true.
But actually, social media could be a very positive, beneficial tool for our society to use to communicate to people outside of our locality, outside of our cities, outside of our states, outside of our country. So I would say get on social media and stand up for yourself and express your free speech. Let people know what you stand for. Do it in terms of when you see something wrong. You got a politician or an official that's taking actions that clearly do not support the values of your community. Speak out. Inundate that person with emails. Even go out and exercise your right of peaceful assembly. Take to the streets in a peaceful way. Let people know that your voice is not going to be drowned out in America. So if you get enough people vocal enough, writing enough, peacefully assembling enough, you'll start changing this world. I lived at a time when I started practicing law, CNN didn't exist.
Right.
I guess it was a gleam in Ted Turner's eye. The internet didn't exist. I guess, as I jokingly say, it was a gleam in Al Gore's eyes. He takes credit for it, but he didn't invent it. The world changed, and I've seen it over the course of my 68 years. I've seen it change, and change is a good thing if it's change in the right direction.
True.
You got to be fundamentally centered. You got to have fundamental principles. You got to have common goals. And so, can we advance and to do better in how we actually live with each other and communicate with each other? Sure. So the technological advances don't have to be bad. They can be an instrument for good. But at the end of the day, life is about a lot of things, but in terms of the real world, it's about communication.
Yep.
How you communicate with your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your children, your neighbors, your officials. You got to communicate. Freedom of speech is the fundamental First Amendment right. If you lose your freedom of speech, you're going to lose your freedom of assembly. You're going to lose your freedom of religion. You're going to ultimately lose your right to bear arms. You're going to lose your due process rights. You've got to exercise your right of free speech. Don't be intimidated. Don't let them suppress you. If they censor you in one place, find another. Find a forum. So that would be my advice in terms of trying to tell you what to do outside of organization of things. Speak up. Let your voice be heard.
Thank you so much. It was a true honor.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Now, Lynn, we have two final guests here who are here today to attend the in-person town hall meeting hosted by General Flynn here at the Riverwalk. My office is here. And then on April 16th and 17th, those of you who want to see Sidney Powell, General Flynn, Lynn Wood, and a host of great speakers, you guys can go to thrivetimeshow.com and click on the conferences button. And Lynn, I've seen you. I've watched you deliver some speeches. Do you? I feel like you kind of feed off the energy of the audience there. Do you like speaking in large audiences? I mean, I feel like I get myself all fired up just watching you, Lynn.
Well, the answer is yes. As a trial lawyer, I love a captive audience. I got to listen to them. But I do feed off of the people that I speak to.
Yeah.
I like to communicate with them. I like to have a conversation with them. Sometimes I'm hot-blooded on things I really care about. I'm okay with that. I hope y'all are too. But I believe that it's the fundamental of having a conversation. Sit down I get in front of a judge. He or she's got a black robe and they look important. I try to have a conversation with them.
Yep.
I get a jury. I try to have a conversation with them. With a witness, I'll try to have a conversation. Sometimes on cross-examination, it's a little bit harder on the witness than they'd like, but that's the way it goes. Thorough and sifting examination to elicit the truth. But I believe that in the people. I think Donald Trump, I'll say I'm a little bit like Donald Trump. I think Trump feeds off of the people because he loves the people. I love talking to your guests, even though I don't know them. I like to talk to people. So, yes, I love to speak. I don't do a lot of it, but when I do, I relish the opportunity. I'm looking forward to doing so in Tulsa.
Amen.
And maybe with time goes, I'll speak to more people. But I know this. The reason I love to talk to people is because God created us to be with each other and have fellowship with each other, to talk with each other, to enjoy each other. That's why he created us.
Now, Lynn,
one of the major reasons.
Lynn, we have a young lady here to my right. Again, I have no proof. Lynn, I have no reason to believe that she is a member of Antifa. Also, no reason to believe she's not a member of Antifa. You see that, Lynn? I can't. It's even though we have irrefutable evidence that ballots have been shredded, that is a conspiracy theory, Lynn. Lynn, when you see the evidence of shredded ballots, that's a conspiracy theory. And anybody who is not a part of Antifa, anybody who's not outwardly speaking in favor of Antifa, is a crazy conservative conspiracy theorist. So I guess our guest here might be a crazy conservative conspiracy theorist. Ma'am, what is your name, and what question would you have for Lynn Wood?
Hi, my name is Kristen Schumann, and I have two questions. The first question is, what are your thoughts on term limits? How can we get to a point where we could begin term limits?
Well, you got to get honest officials in government. And right now, if you put that vote to the people up in Washington, D.C., even in your state legislators, they probably vote it down quickly because they're looking after themselves and not you. So I think you've got to reestablish honesty in government with honest officials who are looking after your interests and not theirs. And if you stop and think about it, what I said earlier about citizen statesmen, send people, men and women, send them to government to serve the people. Let them serve for a limited period of time and then return back to being part of the people who have to be governed by the rules they enact. So I'm a proponent of term limitations.
Yes. Amen.
In our legislators and our state officials. I'm a little bit torn on the question of term limits on the presidency. So I haven't studied that. I know why they did it back with FDR. And I can see where it may be that you just can't. We don't want to have a king.
Right.
We broke away from the king back when we had the Revolutionary War. I said first because I feel like we're in the middle of one now. But we broke away from having this type of tyranny where one person could run us and tell us what to do for too long a period of time. We've absolutely gotten back into that same mindset where the King George today is the people in the Senate, the people in the House, and the people in our state governments, the bureaucracy that is unknown and yet exists. No matter who's the president, the same bureaucratic people are there. They're like miniature King Georges. You got to seize back control of our government. I think term limits helps us get that done.
Lynn, our guest has a follow-up question, I believe, for you.
This is coming from my son. He wants to know, what is your favorite client, or who was your favorite client, and what was the strangest case you've ever been a part of?
Oh.
My favorite client, I've had so many wonderful people that I've represented. I hate to single one out, but I've done it repeatedly because it's the truth, and I speak truth. My favorite client was Richard Jewell, the man falsely accused of bombing Centennial Olympic Park in 1996 at the Olympic Games of Atlanta. I love Richard Jewell. He taught me a lot about life. He changed my legal profession. He changed me as a person. He died way too young. He was a victim of the deep state, the FBI, and he was a victim of the media. And he was used. He was a scapegoat. They threw him out there so they could finish the Games of Atlanta and make all the money they wanted to make on it. And the FBI wanted the world to know, we're the FBI, we got our man is Richard Jewell. They wanted people to think the park was safe, and so they scapegoated Richard Jewell and ruined his life without one shred, pick my words carefully, not one shred, not one iota of evidence that man did anything wrong.
Wow.
They told you in the newspaper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, he fits the FBI profile of the lone bomber. They wanted you to think it was one person, so they think that he was captured and you would be safe. But we know that Richard Jewell was in the park at the precise time that the real bomber placed a one warning call saying there's a bomb in Centennial Olympic Park. You've got 30 minutes. They knew where that call was placed from. They knew the time it was placed. They knew that Richard Jewell was in that park that night. So even if you were to hypothetically say Richard was somehow involved, which he was not, he could not have been a lone bomber. The Richard Jewell story was the story of lies by the media and the FBI. And I'm proud to say when somebody went back and wrote a book on In Search of Eric Rudolph, the man that was the bomber, they had a chapter in that book, and it was about Richard Jewell. And one of the quotes in that book, written by Henry Schuster, who was part of the reason I sued CNN back in '96, he said that Lynn Wood was loathed by the FBI. The FBI loathed Lynn Wood. You know why they loathed me then and they loathe me now? Is because I went out every night and I told the truth about what they were doing to this innocent man. And they don't like the truth.
Lynn,
so Richard Jewell stands out in my mind.
Richard Jewell.
There's a lot of other people I'd love one day to tell you about some of the other great clients I've had, both in the past and in recent times. I've been blessed with some wonderful people, but Richard Jewell stands out in my mind. I still have not given up. I hope that one day Richard will receive posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom, because Richard Jewell stands for what America stands for, a hardworking man trying to follow the law, in fact, enforce the law to help other people. And he was falsely accused, and they destroyed his reputation. I think it contributed to his early death at age 44. Wow. I never forget Richard Jewell. I never forget him.
Lynn, we have time for one more guest, I believe. And before we have our next guest on here, I know a lot of our listeners want to support you because you are fighting to defend this republic. You and Sidney Powell and General Flynn, you guys are really putting in the fight here. Is there a website where people can go to support you, sir, or to learn more about the efforts that you're making right now to defend the republic?
Well, I want to put in my disclaimer. I'm not Antifa, and I'm not a grifter.
Oh!
I'm not somebody out trying to make money on what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I'm doing what I'm doing because I love this country.
Okay.
But I have sought donations in recent weeks because of my efforts both to defend myself against the actions of the State Bar and others, and obviously the fight for integrity in our election. You can go to the website, www.fightback, one word, fightback.law. I formed #FightBack Foundation, the Texas 501c4 Foundation, in the middle of the summer because I felt like we were in the middle of a revolution where we were going to come close to losing our Constitution and our constitutional rights. And I formed Fight Back so that in the future, people would have a group they could go to advocate to prevent us from ever losing our rights again. So I've used that foundation to try to promote things consistent with the mission to protect our constitutional rights. And so I've accepted donations, and I appreciate it. I need it. Listen, I've done well. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm out looking for my next meal. God has blessed me. But the fight that I'm trying to wage right now, I need everybody that's willing to have a dog in the fight to put the dog in the fight. And it will be spent on the efforts to defend our Constitution. I don't take one dime other than cost for security and other related costs, administrative. There's nobody taking a salary. There's nobody flying around on private jets.
Yep.
We're putting that money to good use. So I'm confident that your money will be well spent because I'm in control of it. And I am not here to take advantage of anybody financially. But I want people to feel that they've got something to do, whether it's to send $5 or even better yet, just pray for us. Pray for me. We need everybody to pull together, and everybody needs to be involved in some form or fashion.
Lynn, what's that
so
website?
If it's $5, you're involved. You got a dog in the fight.
Lynn, what's your website where people can donate if they want to?
www.fightback.law.
Fightback.law, folks. That's fightback.law. One more time, it's fightback.law. Lynn, my mom just walked in the studio, so now I have to actually improve my game a little bit here, Lynn. My mom's watching.
Now you better get on your best behavior.
Oh man, Lynn, it's like it's like I'm being on a it's like a trial thing. You're not nervous at all, but then all of a sudden you get that cross-examination going on. Next thing you know, you swear on the Bible. Next thing you know, the show's got to get good when your mom walks in. So I'll let my mom say hi to you here before we wrap up. But ma'am, our next guest here, where are you from, and what's your name?
My name is Patty. I'm from Owasso, Oklahoma.
Patty from Owasso, Oklahoma. And Patty, just get nice and close to that microphone. And what's a question you have as we wrap up this fireside chat with our good friend Lynn Wood?
Mr. Wood, just wanted to know, in your opinion, if there's any chance that the 2020 election will be dealt with in the near future, or are we looking just forward to 2022 and 2024?
Well, again, I don't have the playbook that gives you the answer that you can say, okay, take it to the bank. I can only tell you what I believe and what I personally am fighting for. I believe that we have to deal with the November 2020 election because it was